Markets Now is brought to you by the 5-year anniversary of Brevant Seeds. Here's to 5 years of not just winning, but collecting one game-changing W after another. See all of our wins at brevant.com/wins.
And welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rourke with Brady, Huck of Advanced Trading. And this morning we're seeing livestock to the plus side as well as the soybean market, corn and wheat lower. Brady, thanks for being with us. Let's talk about this corn market. We continue to grind into new contract lows, and the market's been trying to figure out how big this yield is. And boy, StoneX put a big number out there, didn't they?
Yep. Everybody was highly anticipating that StoneX number, what it would look like. Big number that people look at, the trade looks at and sees going into the August WASDE report that's just a week away. So getting that preview from their survey out there kind of rattled the markets a little bit here and added some pressure to the corn overnight, adding to new contract lows. But big yield number there, 188.1 was, I believe, their number. And that matters. I mean, a 7 bushel increase to the national average yield adds a significant amount of production to the table, but it's still early and debatable whether that will actually make it into the bins or not. But definitely a big yield number out there. Everybody's looking at that. Everybody's talking about a big crop. We'll see where it goes. I mean, we got the WASDE report. I don't anticipate that they'll print a 188 next week. But I think there's a lot of people that are looking for a 184, 85, 86 number. We'll get some of those estimates later in the week. But yeah, big numbers coming out next week with that WASDE report, Michelle.
Yeah. And so, you talk 184, 185, 186. We've been talking about that for a few weeks. How much of that's already dialed into prices, do you think?
That's a great question. I think, this market is definitely a bearish market right now. There's more sellers than there are buyers, and they're pricing in a big crop. But are they underestimating demand? The USDA is using a big demand number, big export number going forward. But if the U.S. is the cheapest place in town to get grain, maybe we'll see that come to fruition and see more demand come to the table than what they're currently using. I guess that's the hope if you're a bull. But this time of year, July, August timeframe, if you have non-threatening production problem, there's just, it seasonally, you can see that those lows come in, and maybe we're starting to get all the bad news priced into this market so that we can maybe potentially one of these days see a rally out of this market, Michelle.
Yeah. So to add insult to injury, like you said, non-threatening weather, but we had a 73% good to excellent rating on corn, which is historically high for this time of year, unchanged for the last 3 weeks. The market's really been basing a lot of their models off of those high crop ratings, haven't they?
Yeah, I think, 73% good to excellent rating there, unchanged versus last week. This is a time of year where you start to see just the seasonal kind of attrition of the corn crop as we get deeper into summer and the crop matures. We just see those ratings kind of tend to decline. So holding into the first week of August, and most of the corn belt being wetter than normal throughout the month of July, just really sets the stage for what we think will be a big crop, the market pricing that in. And, I think that one of the surprises yesterday with a good to excellent rating was the decline on the soybean front. I think the trade was looking for even to unchanged and seeing a 1% decline on the good to excellent ratings there.
Yeah.
So beans might be corn's best friend going forward, Michelle.
Yeah, because you can't have those markets going in opposite directions for sure. So the soybean market, let's talk about that. Like you said, a little drop in crop ratings, but is this market just seeing some short covering activity in both soybeans and meal after being pounded for so long? Or is the market looking at weather maybe at the end of August being a little drier?
A little bit of both, Michelle. I think you're spot on with both those. Yeah, looking forward at some of that weather risk that could lie ahead as the bean crop's in good shape, setting a lot of blooms across the country, and the crop rhetoric that I'm hearing from discussions with my customers is, "Hey, it's so good, I don't even want to talk about it right now. Just don't want to jinx it." But we're getting to that important part of the year where we set those blooms and set those pods. August weather matters to beans, and like I said earlier, that could be the corn market's best friend here going forward is some trouble on the bean front. Also, got right around the corner is South America planting progress with, they'll be putting their bean crop into the ground here September, October timeframe too. So some key months ahead for soybean production. every crop in reality, but big months ahead for soybeans too.
Yeah, the other thing we're watching, Brady, is demand. New crop exports are behind pace, and China's not been in to buy. How much of a concern is that on the market, or how much does it prevent us from being able to rally much here?
Yeah, I think they'll come to the table eventually. It's just a matter of when. And China's, they're pretty good at playing the game, and they know how to play the game, I guess. To me, they're waiting maybe on a problem in South America to come to the table and decide whether or not, how aggressively they need to come to the market for U.S. beans, and when they need to do that. So possible, trade deal type negotiation tactic there being played as well, Michelle.
Yeah, that's right. China will wait and use that as leverage for sure. Now, because of these low prices, we've seen a lot of flash sales of corn this morning included. We haven't seen as many for beans, have we?
No, definitely not. But I love that you brought that up. We were joking about that this morning. The
I
USDA
know.
did make that misprint this morning, initially saying that was a soybean flash sale, and then coming back a few minutes later and correcting that to corn. We're seeing more of those misprints. We need a better proofreader out there before we send those export flashes out. But bulls need a story, and on the corn front, demand has been a solid story for the bulls. When we look at beans, though, they need to come to the table. We need to see some of that demand come in.
I'm sorry, Brady, but how hard is it to get that right? It's only a line. I'm sorry. I'm not going to give USDA a pass on that one this morning. Okay, the
Right.
wheat market has continued as well to grind into contract lows here. Are we still just trying to price in a bigger crop, or what's the pressure coming from? Or is it spillover from corn?
Right. Yeah. Well, we had a great crop out here in Kansas where I'm at. Farmers had a great wheat crop this year. Been a great year of production across the Western Plains out here this year for the most part, especially in Kansas. But good crop, getting finished out of the fields and making that store sell decision right now. They don't like the price, but they like the yield. So wheat, having an abundance of wheat kind of weighs on the corn front because that can pressure on the feeding front of making its way into the feed products. But yeah, U.S. has the bushels, and we're looking for a global story somewhere else. Maybe it's Argentina, maybe it's Australia that comes in and excites this market. But just as a whole, grains, corn, beans, wheat, the bulls need some sort of story. They need a production problem, or they need a demand surge to get this market excited and to see that rally that we're all hoping for. Until then, bears are in firm control of this market, and we're just waiting for that story, Michelle.
Yeah. And then wheat this morning, we've got the headwind of a higher dollar, and I know we're kind of sensitive to that in the wheat market. Okay, let's talk about the cattle market. Record cash last week. Futures are higher today, but will we go back up and try to retest the contract highs from last week and negate those bearish reversals?
Boy, the cattle market has been a fun one, and that's where all the excitement is right now. If you're in the ag business, being in cattle is a great place to be. So, yeah, record prices. The $1 billion question is when are we gonna hit the top? When it's gonna be rollover, and when's the party going to end? And I think that's a question that we just don't know. We just don't answer. I think we're closer to it each day. We grind in these markets. We're getting closer to it, but I don't know. We see these flash crashes, these headline driven, sentiment driven market breaks. We saw a little bit of that last Thursday, big range trading, but we're trying to find stability here, and it takes a while for the fundamentals to change in the cattle market. Producers may push back at prices, and maybe we're starting to see some of that. But the choice cutout, it's hanging in there. We've got to watch some of the components of that cutout. As can the rib offset as we get into some seasonal declines in the loin? The lean market, the chuck and the round are supporting choice cutout and supporting those values tremendously right now. So with as we get into fall, that's when producers naturally start culling the cow herd. And with a young cow herd out there and significant culling over the past 3 to 4 years, cow slaughter has been down this year, and I would anticipate that culling rate will be down as well in the fall. And we may see that lean market definitely supported by that front. Big question out there, though, Michelle, is when are we starting to rebuild? And I think we're starting to see some signs of that out there. A lot of the data that the trade looks at is very much delayed on, are we keeping heifers back? Are they working their way into the herd? But some of the auction data that we look at and see is starting to show less heifers in the mix as a ratio of steers. And we've got great pasture conditions out there. There's also some tax implications as ranchers are out there selling their steer calves at record prices. If they go sell their heifer calf crop as well, they get into a situation where they gotta pay taxes on all that income, and we don't like to pay any more taxes than we have to, Michelle.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, so in your mind, you sound like demand is holding up. Do we continue to see it? We have retail beef prices at the store. Do we have any indication consumers are backing away from sticker shock or trading down to other proteins or anything like that?
Yeah, well, it's nice to be able to raise your own beef if you can, because going to the meat case at any retail place is definitely expensive, and it's a little sticker shock there. But when
Right.
you compare that to going out to a restaurant and what you're going to pay for a steak at some fancy restaurant out there in the city, um, it can almost feel like you're buying that ribeye at discount for 30-40 bucks here there at the at your local meat counter. So I don't know. If you're in the market for a steak, that demand's inelastic, and we want to buy it. We want to have a steak, and we want to live life today. There's kind of two different segments of that consumer out there: the steak consumer, and then the hamburger ground beef consumer out there.
Right. Brady, also hearing about kill cuts this week, and the Packers have been seeing margins in the red. Could, if they continue to cut kills here, could that squash the cash market or not?
Good at managing their margin, or they do the best they can to manage their margin. And however they manipulate the system and the chain speeds, that type of stuff, to stay in control, as best control they can be. But going forward, there's only so many animals out there. And if the consumer continues to have a strong appetite for beef, I think the cow calf guy, the producers are in control, and the Packers going to do some jockeying around week to week to try to manage their margins a little bit. So,
Sounds good. All right. Thanks so much, Brady Huck with Advanced Trading, joining us here for Markets Now.
When you choose Brevant Seeds, you don't just win. You win so big, the very ground beneath your feet cries tears of joy. You win so big that second place feels like a participation trophy. You win so big, you might as well be harvesting buried treasure. Oh, sorry, just one more. When you choose Brevant Seeds, you don't just win. You hit the damn jackpot. Don't just win. Win. Talk with your retailer or visit Brevant.com/jackpot to get started.